Hello, welcome back to Tales from the Pit. I'm your host, Michael Swaim. This is your content warning. This episode concerns military service, a soldier's experiences in Iraq, and, of course, the emotional fallout of those events. So if that might trigger you or you want to take some time with this one, if that's a personal experience that resonates with you, just know that that's what we're going to dig into today. Obviously, this only represents one soldier's experience, and we certainly don't intend to speak for all service members. Before we get to the interview, I should also say that Cristian wrote a beautiful piece about his experiences in Iraq, which he requested to read at the end of the episode. So stay tuned at the end for that piece, and just know that today's opening monologue for me is very much a reaction to that piece. That's not something I usually do. I usually come in with some kind of high premise concept of my own, but this time I was so inspired by what Cristian wrote, I decided to just sort of organically respond to it in my own way. And I think I decided to do that because one of the things that's unique about serving in combat is someone who's never done it truly can't understand what it's like. And I think it's fitting that all I can really do, as someone who has never served in the military, is give you my reflection, as it were, of what I'm hearing from Cristian. So that's what this is. It's a little more freeform and performative than you might be used to on this show, but it's short, so humor me. Coming soon to a theater of war near you. War! The movie or show or what have you. Warsaw was raw. Why war? What's war? Well, meet Will. Will heeds the call of duty. Modern warfare welcomes Will with an open arms race. In a world racked by war, war never changes, but war will change Will. Watch. Private Ryan waive his right to sue for injuries sustained in basic killbot training. See, Will watch V for Vendetta with the squad and wonder what we're here for. Feel how fucking hot it is in groundbreaking 4D. The extra D is for PTSD. What of Will's will? Should Will be killed? Will's will wills everything to the enemy, because Will came to kill with kindness, shock hearts, and awe minds. In war, what is it good for? Accomplishing certain geopolitical or humanitarian goals with the application of force. What would you do? Text War 1 to drone the wedding, War 2 to waterboard the suspect, or War 3 for Kelly Clarkson. War! Will Wheaton said don't be a dick, but the sandstorm's thick and Will waves water bottles from the back of the truck. Will kind of sucks. IED or IUD, only you decide. In war, one platoon flies their Black Hawk down a thin red line to apocalypse. Now, no Fury can make a great escape from the Hurt Locker, and even if they could, the VA wouldn't pay for the damages. Will's relieved to give relief, give flyers door to door and warn the civvies in the AO what they've got in store. Wowee, the Wimbledon of war. It's love v love and hate v hate. Barrages back and forth, sidebar. Serena Williams would win a war. War! It's like nothing you've known unless it isn't. Will won't waft home in a body bag. But Will wasn't the only one working those roads. Will comes home to show he's grown, and sometimes late nights on his own recalls the sight of men through sights and groans low, feeling alone. I'm imagining that night as me. Support the troops, Will's broken bones, and may they knit us a demilitarized zone whose name is unironic. The brand new drones are supersonic. Will's wife asks what war was, for Will sit silent and still. Why? War? Wherefore art thou war? Hired goons?
Violent video games awash upon God's golden shores. Bastards most inglorious and let the Nazi bodies hit the floor. An active shooter waging a one-man war from the 30th floor. War. It's the gray area that will mess with your gray matter. For worse or better, at the cost of some bloodshed, but who can keep score? Alright, this rhyme scheme is becoming a chore. War! Now playing almost everywhere. Right next to the Howard Johnsons.
Okay, great. Welcome to the pit, Christian.
Hello.
It's not as dank as you'd think, but there's more cats per capita than most other pits of depression.
That's good, though. They help with depression, right?
I think all animals help with depression.
Just the petting.
Well, I don't know.
companionship.
Lobster, I don't know. All pets, but the furry ones. We like mammals.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're going to get hate mail from snake and lizard lovers.
Something to cuddle is
we
what
have close
we like.
friends who are very, very close to their bearded dragon lizard,
Okay.
But it's like a big meaty lizard that you could actually cuddle.
Yeah.
It is really hard to... I wonder if there's someone out there with a bug that's very dear to them. Probably tarantulas.
Sure.
But I can't think
They're
of...
fuzzy. But, I don't think that you'd have some kind of beetle that you were very close to.
Ant farms? Is that sea monkeys? All right, so there's no way to segue gracefully into what we're going to talk about.
Of course
so
not.
I think we'll just do it. You served in the armed forces.
Yes.
The Army specifically,
Yeah.
right? And is that why the haircut?
Oh.
Is that in honor of today? Christian
No.
has a freshly shaved head today.
No, that was not in honor of today. It's just that it felt really hot. Like we ran into a heat spell for a little bit, and that was just like, oh nope, I don't want any more hair.
Good idea. All right, yeah, we're in the middle of a newsworthy heat wave in LA right now. Yeah. Okay, but you did serve in the Army for 6 years. Is that right?
Yeah, 5 years and 8 months. So
okay.
You can round up to 6. It's not.
The way you knew it immediately. I mean, I'm sure there's a few reasons, but I just got to ask. By the end, were you like dying to get out of there?
Oh, yeah. I was counting down the days at the end.
Because my pal who's in the Air Force knew exactly when he was going to get out because he went in really excited.
Yeah.
And then by the end was like counting the days. Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
Okay.
Same,
all right.
basically
And we'll
same.
hear about why. And basically we're going to talk about armed services and serving the military, which is something that is unimaginable to me. Or like right before you got here, because you were held up by traffic a little bit, to kill time, I was playing Spec Ops: The Line, which is a war video game about conflict in like a Dubai equivalent place, and it's literally lauded all the time for how much it's like. I mean, if you played that, that's basically like, you know what it's like to be in war. And knowing you were coming here, I was like, this is so laughable. Like the distance, the emotional distance is nothing like. So please, if you could just dive in, let us know your details, like what brought you into the Army.
Yeah.
Everything. Wherever you want to start.
I can go for a while.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah. So when I was... I think what brought me into the military was kind of the same thing that brought a lot of the people of our generation into the military. And that was our experiences with 9/11. And that was something that, I remember it. I think we all remember it kind of intensely because it was a feeling of like uncertainty that glowed really brightly at that time because, we were untouchable for 10 years at least from the time that from the time that the USSR fell until 9/11 happened. That was it. We had nothing to worry about. And so that I would say is the reason, the first reason why I joined. It was that happened. So when I was a sophomore in high school, so it was kind of like,
I think I was a freshman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. And it had got me thinking about it already. And it was like, okay, well, if there's going to be a war going on and they're going to need people to fight in it. And getting out of high school. I'm not going to have any huge commitments or anything like that. So when I was 19, I joined. It was I think the idea at that point was still, I'm going to join because I'm a kid. I'm not married to anyone. I don't have any kids.
Did you feel you had a career calling yet in any particular direction?
I had always wanted to act and be in entertainment and stuff like that. Because like that was even before I joined the military. Of course, I was in plays and stuff in high school, and my friends and I made videos and stuff like that for AV. And so yeah, this has always been kind of the thing that I knew I wanted to do. But at that time, it was I'll take a few years to serve my country, and like I guess it's the corny way of saying it, but I wanted to serve the country that I had gotten so much from.
Yeah.
And that was something that my grandparents and my parents, who are immigrants, my mom is not, she's first or second generation American, but on my father's side, they're all immigrants.
Okay.
So it was very much from the time that I was little, appreciate what you have, because they're from Guatemala, and there had been a civil war going on there for years and years and years that they left Guatemala to get to the United States for. So
yeah, when I was on vacation there and just taking bus from one location to another, guys with a semi-auto rifle stopped, and the bus driver was like, "They're not gonna hurt anyone." And they came on, they're like, $50 everyone. And he's like, just give them the $50. And they left. And so it's like, yeah, there's shit popping off in Guatemala.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. And even before like the drug trade and everything made everything in Central America the way that it is now, they had been fighting a war of independence between a lot of the people that were supporting the native people and a lot of people that were, it's a similar war that has a similar type of conflict to a lot of the conflicts that went on Central America and South America.
Sure.
But
did you ever, so there are veterans in your family? Is that
no, they never, I'm the first one.
Oh, okay.
I'm the first one for, I think,
like a ways back.
Yeah, since World War II on my mom's side.
Right. Had you ever considered service before 9/11, or was that really like the catalyst?
It was something, I think, as growing up as a little boy or somebody who like wants adventure and stuff like that, and you watch movies that are based on war and stuff like that for your life growing up. You watch Star Wars, and you watch anything Saving Private Ryan. You watch stuff with conflict in it.
Saving Private Ryan doesn't
make
make you be like, that looks fun now.
That's true.
'Cause that's what I was wondering. Is like, did you ever see like All Quiet on the Western Front or any of the movies where it's like, war is horrible?
Yeah, I saw All Quiet on the Western Front.
And those didn't discourage you?
No, it didn't discourage me. That was stuff that was more like, because that was still, it's so far away. It's on the TV.
The vast majority are about World War II also, which has sort of a historical cast over it to us. Yeah.
And of course, World War II is the good war that we were fighting, where we were the good guys. We were fighting Nazis. We were fighting the bad guys of history. So
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
of
it's
Western
tough to
history,
say.
at least. Like that's something.
If violence is ever going to be employed, it's the most defensible time we've ever done it.
Right.
Yeah.
that's the general like idea, cultural idea that we have about World War II, is that it was a righteous war.
So that was my next question: is as a kid, how conscious were you of the political side of it? Like, were you plugged into? Did you just want to serve your country and go wherever they sent you? Or did you care if there were WMDs there? You know what I mean? How much was your political gland developed?
In high school, I participated in a walkout that we did in 2000. We were seniors or juniors in 2003 when the invasion of Iraq started. And we did a walkout, and I participated in that. So I was against the Iraq war, but I was completely okay with the conflict in Afghanistan, because I felt like that one. Okay, that makes sense. that we're there. We were attacked by people who, and at the time, of course, I didn't keep up enough to know that it's like, oh, these are Saudi people that attacked us. These are America's allies and stuff like that.
Everything's
and all
a
the
gray
confusing-
area.
Right.
I'm not going to argue whether we should or should not have
Exactly.
been. We would
No.
need Cody and Robert Evans here to help out.
Right. But it was, these people are in Afghanistan. That's where they're operating. That's where
Right.
the Taliban is. That's where Osama
Yeah.
bin Laden is.
And we don't need to bother. It's okay because
Yeah.
this is the pit. So we just want to know how you feel, how you felt about it.
But, and that's, to
Yeah.
me, that's how it was. And so I enlisted, expecting my initial, I guess, thought about me enlisting was that I would do about a year or however long I had to. I think it was 2 years.
5 years and 8 months later.
Right. No, it was, I did that long a contract because I wanted to, because I was too young to be going into special forces, and that's what I had wanted to do originally. And so
did you study and know exactly what a special forces life entailed versus, okay. And B, how close is it to what, like, someone who watches TV, like, did you want to, because I always hear this crazy shit like,
Right.
well, you know, they train by like being sunk with weights in the ocean overnight and all this shit.
I mean, there's some truth to like the rumors and stuff like that. When I was actually in the military,
Were you
I
gonna
got
learn to
know.
rappel?
I mean, I didn't learn to rappel. We did rappelling in basic training. So,
See, that's basic. I don't even.
Right.
What is special
that
forces?
was just,
do?
no,
Do
that was walking
levitate?
down. That's like walking down a wall.
Okay.
Is that kind of rappelling?
Yeah.
I didn't actually go to air assault school, which would be rappelling from a helicopter
Oh
and stuff
shit!
like that. But that was my initial intent, was to go into special forces, and that, I guess, the job there, a lot of times the job that is actually happening is they are going into other countries. They're being deployed into other countries and training local people to fight. And they are the first people into a lot of places. There's an entire AFRICOM, which is America's African command, where we send special forces people. We have a bunch of different groups of special forces that go to South America, Africa, Asia, and I can't remember where else. But they go to all
Moonbase Alpha.
They do go to all sorts of different places, and that's kind of their deal, is that they go in to a lot of times it's to train
So
local nationals.
with your eye on special forces, because this is really parallel to my buddy Griffin. He joined the Air Force specifically wanting to be like a fighter pilot and then an astronaut, and it didn't work out. Ironically, because on his tests, he did perfectly well in the flight simulator. But he's so smart that he did even better on the number crunching. So they gave him a job crunching numbers. You know what I mean? They're like, there's a dumb guy who only scored 100% on the flight test. He'll be the fighter pilot. And there's so few slots. I imagine Special Forces is probably very competitive too.
Yeah.
But is it true? So like across the board, the thing I feel I've taken away, and I want to be corrected if it's not true, is at every level, like you just said about teaching, it's mostly routine, or like it's like a job. Like you're not just constantly having action scenarios play out. And I'm just wondering how much, as a 19-year-old with your eye on special forces, I have to ask, looking back, do you feel you had a realistic understanding of like what a special forces life would be like, and you really wanted to do that? Or were you partly swayed by the adventureness of it all? Like, that sounds badass.
Yeah, I was partially swayed by the adventure of it, of the idea that I would get a call in the middle of the night and then have to be gone to somewhere that I don't know for 6 months.
Yeah.
And like somewhere in the world, doesn't matter where. And that adventure part did appeal to me. But at the same time, it was, once I got into the Army, it was kind of learning that, it's an everyday, like you have your everyday routine and stuff like that. But part of the everyday routine is getting up really early and doing physical training. Part of it is weapon drills. Part of it is maintenance. Part of it is going out to ranges and stuff like that, where you do learn how to clear rooms and you learn how to shoot things at 300 meters is just without any kind of special scope. And like it's a job, but it is a job where you're training for those action scenes.
Yeah.
Like so you try to train as realistically as possible.
But generally, unless you're a statistical anomaly,
Right.
only like being an ER doctor, only a few truly like action scenes will play out over the course of your career. And I want to ask how long it took, I guess, for the shine to wear off, or to not view it in a negative way. When did you start having a more complex emotional understanding of like, here I am now, this is what it's really like? What was that like?
I guess I can answer because those are kind of two different moments. For me, the shine started wearing off even before I had ever gotten deployed. Because
doesn't bode well for the rest of the story.
No, because it was a situation where I had been in for maybe not even a year at that point, but it wasn't a year. I'd been in for like 8 months at that point. And we were just doing a regular run, doing a 5-mile run, and one of the guys stopped in front of me. I kept going. My foot landed on its side, and I tore 3 ligaments in my ankle. And so I fell down, tried to get up, couldn't like do it steadily. But then my squad leader, who will remain nameless, is telling me to get up, run, keep going.
Right.
And like, because he thinks that I guess I'm faking it or something. So then I finish like another 2.5 miles with my ankle like that. And then for the rest of the day, I walk around on it until the afternoon comes, and I take my boot off finally, because as soon as I got back, I changed from my athletic shoes into my regular uniform, and I just cinched it as tight as I could because it hurt, but I didn't want to say anything.
Ankle together. Yeah.
And so I take my boot off at the end of the day, and one of my team leaders happened to be coming in, and he looked at it. I hadn't even really looked at it. And he said, "What happened to your ankle?" And I looked at it. I was like, "Oh crap!" And it had swollen up like bigger than a grapefruit. And it was
oh my God,
all bruised and just looked awful. And he was like, "You're going to the hospital right now."
Yeah, like I get the culture of pushing through pain, but you're supposed to not break the soldier. Mechanically, we need you functioning.
That is true.
That was a bad decision. Yeah.
And so it wasn't even, I guess, that moment, but then further continuing to have to deal with the medical system, and like it's impossible. Like I was supposed to be doing physical therapy after I was basically on bed rest for about a week because they didn't want me putting any weight on it. And then they said, get up and walk around and do stuff for another couple months, and then we'll get you doing physical therapy. Physical therapy never happened. A few months later, it had healed well enough for me to like move around and stuff, and to start like running again. It still hurt, but like I could functionally do stuff with it. And so I still did, like, we had an expert infantryman thing that we had to do. And so I still did that 12-mile ruck marches with 30 pounds on my back, and like doing that in less than 3 hours and doing stuff like that. And it hurt, but it wasn't like so painful that it was completely debilitating. So I just kind of pushed through for a while. And when I finally got an MRI on it, which was like years down the line, they said it had healed, but it had healed wrong. So basically I was at the point where either you have to deal with, there's going to be pain in it every once in a while, at least for basically the rest of your life, or we can do surgery on it, disconnect a bunch of stuff, and then reconnect it to where it heals correctly.
And one of your feet is a wooden peg. I've always wondered how that happened. So this is great backstory.
But yeah, and so that
like it's the best medicine military has to offer. Yeah.
But yeah, and so that all happened within the first like 9 months of, well, not 9 months. I guess that all happened within the first year of me being in the military. Was my first experience with the medical system, and like that really put me off of joining special forces. And then like I got married, and so that also put me off of joining special forces, because I was like, And through no fault of my wife, because she told me, like, if I still want to do it, then do it. But at the same time, there's always that pull of like, okay, I'm living in a relationship that is for two people, that my life cannot just be thinking about myself and like, oh, sure, it would be fun, but it's still exciting, I guess, at the prospect of doing special forces and going through stuff like that and being deployed for 6 months into the middle of wherever, and I can't talk about it, and like the mystery of it's cool. But
well, how long would you be deployed at a stint once you were deployed?
Special forces goes anywhere.
Or no, I mean you. Because you didn't
eventually,
go into
yes,
forces,
I did get deployed even just as a regular, because I was an infantryman. So so I ended up getting deployed twice for a year each time.
To Afghanistan?
To Iraq. So
ouch.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you said going in, you're like, I'm much more on board with the conflict in Afghanistan, but they don't give a shit which one you'd prefer to go to. That's
because when I ended up deploying was when they were doing the surge and stuff like that. And so at the time it did suck, but it was like, we hadn't found weapons of mass destruction. They were not there. And so it was in the rebuilding phase. And I did end up doing some stuff that I was happy to do, but we were rebuilding because we had broken stuff. So,
but in the moment you felt like you did service to people, like on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the time, I guess I'll get into actual deployment now.
Please.
At the time, it was my first deployment. The main objective was creating stability in our area of operations, and then getting out, because that's when AQI, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, had started getting a foothold, and that was part of the Iraq Civil War and all sorts of stuff like that. And that's when the insurgency had already actually started happening was when I joined. And then when we got deployed was basically stomp out whatever insurgency is in the area, and then rebuild the area, help them make schools, help them get their city council or whatever together, help them do all of that kind of stuff. And that was what our job ended up being.
What did the stomping entail? Was that a bombing campain or a ground
campaign?
For
the most part.
Because that's how we do now usually, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was telling everybody to get out of the area of operations, or otherwise at this time everybody's going to be considered combatants. And then so that was mostly calling in strikes from helicopters and stuff like that. Obviously my unit and other units would come into small arms fire contact and stuff like that. But a lot of times if you can pinpoint where it is and they're in a building or something like that and you're out in a field, then the smartest thing to do is to call in a helicopter strike and stuff like that. So that's what the initial few months, which just to clarify, because I had been in Korea for a year, I ended up missing the first 3 months of the deployment, which was the time when the heaviest
serving
fighting.
in Korea.
Well, it was because Korea is considered.
Didn't that war end when MASH wrapped up?
It's considered a hardship duty tour because the war is not technically over, and you're based on the DMZ in case something.
I see.
Does happen.
Okay, so holding down the tenuous line between North and South. Okay.
Right. So you're not allowed
not
to bring
the MASH
family.
Korean
Right.
War, the new Korean War.
No, I'm not a time traveler.
But, yeah. So, how was this all affecting your emotional state? I mean, you mentioned small arms fire, and even if it's far away, that's something most people don't ever confront.
Yeah, the first time that I had ever run into actual small arms fire that I could
not
see,
a shooting range, enemies.
That was directed at me. Was we were doing a patrol. It was a 10K patrol that we were just on foot walking, and all of a sudden there's puffs of dirt, and then we hear cracks in the distance. We don't know where it's coming from exactly, so I'll get down, behind whatever cover we could, because we were kind of in an open-ish field with some like trees and stumps. I hid behind a rock. And then, so that happens. I see where it's coming from, and it's one of the guys there that are wearing a reflective belt. Reflective belts at the time were designed to designate people who we had hired to hold security on certain points, locals who had started, who we were trying to integrate into their own security force. And so it was one of them that had been shooting at us. We never got confirmation on whether or not they were supposed to, like, who it was, because by the time we got to where they were, the guys basically, I think the guy that had shot at us had run away because he was scared that we were going to fire back on him.
Yeah.
We ended up not, because we saw that it was one of the local nationals that, and my LT basically told us
or
all
a guy
to
with a
stand down.
stolen belt. Is that possible, or are
Completely
they really
possible.
okay? Yeah.
Very easily possible. But my platoon commander, the lieutenant that was with us, basically told us to stand down. We didn't end up engaging with the people. So by the time we got there, our interpreter basically made it clear to us that they were, like, their story was not that trustworthy.
Sure.
But yeah, so we just finished the patrol after that. And that's the first time. And then,
well, so I notice you are very dryly giving like the events.
Yeah.
I mean, they're interesting because it's amazing that you went through that. But I will circle back to my question. How'd you feel as that was happening? Or is it some, I mean, because I've heard that thing where it's so surreal that you don't really have feelings while it's happening, or.
Yeah, while it's happening, the military is very good at training you to respond through muscle memory, to just react, and you don't have to think at all. And so that's what seeing puffs of dirt, hearing cracks, then I'm down behind a rock before I know that I'm actually thinking about doing that, and I'm sighting whoever's shooting at us before I have a conscious thought.
So your brain is not thinking, if I get shot, it'll hurt so bad.
No,
that's like there's no room for that.
No,
okay.
that's a thing that you prepare for, and prepare for, and like even in the grimmest ways you prepare for it. We all wrote notes to our families and to our loved ones that we would keep in our patrol caps or in one of our pockets in case we were killed.
Yeah,
that's just a thing.
Of course. Well, that guy just missed probably because he's too far away, but he could have gotten lucky, so to speak. Yeah.
And so that is something that you are keenly aware of when you're not in the moment. You are very much 100% aware that death is a real thing.
Okay, so you do find yourself ruminating on the emotional aspect, but just not when you're actually doing the patrol.
Right. And not when you're in the moment of contact, when you're in the moment of being in a firefight or being shot at, when you're just in a mounted patrol and you don't know where the shots are coming from. This is something that happened on a regular basis. People would just take pop shots at us when we were doing a mounted patrol, which is in vehicles, and we wouldn't necessarily know where it came from, so we can't just shoot into wherever we think it's coming from. We have to wait to actually get confirmation that it's coming from a certain place, so we just keep driving. Like, it's something you hear the crack, and then sometimes if it gets close enough you hear it making a noise, but it's not, I mean, nobody was ever killed that way during my deployment. So it's just, I guess it's a dull, low tension 100% of the time that you're there, that spikes occasionally, not when you're in the middle of combat, because then you're just working on muscle memory and adrenaline. But then occasionally when you're by yourself, when you have a quiet
can spiral,
moment,
right. Okay.
It can spiral really quickly.
And what about when you were, because you mentioned like going around and telling people to get out of the area of operation before bombing campaign. I imagine, I mean, it's still tense, but it's, how did you feel when you were interacting with people, like civilians that you knew were civilians, and
once
telling them we're going to bomb your block that you live on soon, you have to go?
Once we had actually started interacting with the local people, it was in the sense that it was, it does a funny thing in your brain. To when they're non-combatives, they're non-combatives. They're people that are there. They live there, and we're there to make this place more secure. So it completely changes your any kind of interaction that you would have with them from when they could have possibly been a hostile person to now your brain. It's a switch that goes on and off, basically. And that's what I told you before, that I'm very good at compartmentalizing. And that's a skill.
Because really it's very fluid, right?
Right.
From person to person, they'll have their own complex feelings about all the way from, no, I want you dead, to I'm in the middle, to I love America, or I want you to intercede at least. Yeah.
And for me, that's why the combat thing and I guess that killer instinct and that muscle memory that was drilled into me, it's a switch for me. Okay. It is something that I don't know that I actively turn it on and off, but I know that it goes on and I know it goes off. Because I mean, and this is a secondary thing, but recently in the last world history class that I was taking, they did the audio from a poetic reading of the Quran, and they played the audio for us, and it was basically, the Quran is meant to be recited. It's meant to be listened to. It was something that was passed down
oral tradition.
Orally. Yeah. And so it was. So when I heard it, even in class, it like tickled the switch in my brain, and it completely like destroyed me for the rest of the day. Like I couldn't come down from being on high alert after that.
With what feeling? Anxiety?
Yeah, it was because now I'm so removed from that.
It's sad because it's like a beautiful treatise on love, just like the Bible.
Yeah, and I'm fine with like cognitively. It was nothing.
Right.
And it was just a normal thing in a history class. Yeah. But there was like I said, it brushed against that switch in me, and now because I'm so far removed from that, I wasn't functional for the rest of the day. Man. I couldn't calm my brain down.
Yeah. The stimulus is so specific to you, because I read a good interview with a guy who is a bomb squad guy. Yeah. And a couple bombs were found in trash cans, and that's what gets him. And they're so they're everywhere. So like on trash day, he can't go outside. Like if he sees a trash can out the window, that'll wreck him all day. Yeah.
And that's just, I'm lucky because it is something that's very specific. That's like, they would play prayers through loudspeakers and stuff like that from whatever mosque was nearby, and we would just hear it sometimes on patrol, or we'd hear it when we were at a base.
So it's like exactly like a Pavlov's dog. Yeah. This was literally blasted every day, and you associate it with your time there. Yeah, of course.
And it was just a subconscious association that I have no control over. Right. Because like you said, it's a lot of it. It's musical, it's lyrical, it's supposed to be beautiful, and it is. Like I can objectively say that it sounds beautiful, but there's that part of me that can't turn.
Or you're
off.
a Cylon, and it's summoning you.
But that's just an aside, but that's like I said.
To me, that's the meat. I think that is. I can tell you're good at compartmentalizing.
Sure.
Because like it's interesting to me in the present moment that you like to go, and I felt this way about it, and that doesn't matter. But back to there was a rock, there were trees, there was a Humvee. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a coping mechanism, I'm sure.
Sure. And that's why it took me a few weeks to a couple months. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but I was just sitting quietly in my room. My roommate was doing whatever. It was dark because we like to keep it dark because it gets so bright.
Mm-hmm.
And was just sitting there by myself thinking about whatever. And the moment came back to me and I saw it and I saw everything. And I saw the guy in the sights of my weapon that I was carrying, and like you feel the trigger on your finger and stuff like that, and
phantom trigger.
Right.
You mean the moment the small arms fire moment?
Yeah. And like I said, I never even ended up pulling the trigger, but in that moment when I'm detached from it, when I'm by myself in my room, it's then all the thoughts come in of that guy has a family. Why am I here? What's going on? How am I able to so coldly do something like that and just be ready to take a life without even thinking about it? Because of course,
because that's your job.
Yeah,
you're trained to do that.
Because
exactly.
I was trained.
Yeah, to do exactly that thing.
But then when I'm thinking about it, I guess the arrogance of a young man comes in thinking the army isn't going to be able to change me. I'm different. I'm more mentally capable of resisting their training and stuff like that than other people. If I ever have to take a life, it's going to be something that I think about, and that it's going to be a decision I make.
Like, even under fire, you think your brain will be able to parse everything and make like a really ethical decision.
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
End of the day.
Because when you're 19, those are the kinds of things that you think about
Sure.
yourself. That's how capable you think you are, or like that's how unhuman you think you are.
Well, yeah, I just did an episode with Maggie May, and we
Yeah.
both talk about how we idolized martyrdom.
Sure.
And imagined always like going into a war, and then as the two sides come out, like going in the middle and like putting our gun down, and everyone's so touched that they like stop, but they've already shot us. It's too late, and then we're revered forever as like a person of peace. Yeah, you feel like you could be the one to save the day.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that added to the sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
Like you want to be there because you know you have your heart in the right place.
Right.
It's better than there could be an asshole there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
that's dangling water bottles out the back of the truck like a dick.
That's part of the reason why I joined, is because I think me being there is a better thing than somebody who is a sociopath who just wants a reason to kill people. Because I'm not saying that that's a lot of people in the military, but I think that there are people that absolutely feel that way, that join the military because they want the experience of killing people.
This is probably not even responsible to say out loud, but because like if you're born a sociopath and become fascinated with murder and are smart enough to realize that you'll go to jail almost any way you slice it otherwise, that's kind of your only opportunity to experience that or make billions of dollars and secretly run a murder camp. But like, I think that makes sense in the same way that we have such a police issue with racism, and it's not to like, it's weird. It's both diminishing and true. They're like, it's a few bad apples. Right. But I do believe a minority of cops, and I still think there is the same conditioning thing where parts of the training for police is reinforcing subconscious racism. That's part of the issue, but you're gonna attract people who do want to beat the shit out of people, of course.
Yeah, there's a few bad apples in any community.
But you gotta get them.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean so we're good.
Right.
Like if I bought
don't stop talking after there's a few bad apples.
I never thought of that. If I went to the grocery store and I bought a bag and there were like 6 bad apples in the bunch, like rotten apples, I would not buy that bag of apples.
Exactly.
There shouldn't be any. Yeah.
But and so I don't know. That's, like I said, that is something that attracted me to the military in the first place. Because it's like I said, the arrogance of a young man is to think that you're beyond things like that, and then the reality hitting you in the face in a quiet moment by yourself is a lot. It's something. I've never had a panic attack, but it was something that certainly made my brain spiral for a little bit and into a bad place. And then of course you have to come out of it and go on patrol after that. But like I said, there's that switch that just turns on when it's like, oh, time to do my job.
Yeah, I'm sure you've done a lot more processing since.
Yeah.
Like now you have the rest of your life to actually figure out what you thought about it. You did mention sort of I think it was most pronounced, at least in the mythology of America, in Vietnam, but like the fatigue of like, because it's got to be even harder if you're someone who joined to actually impact the geopolitical situation positively. I'm sure you must have had moments where you realized that your impact is very small no matter how hard you try.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned moments of like, are we even doing the right thing in the grand sense?
Yeah.
How did that become like a dominant force towards the end of your career, or did you keep it at bay? Were you able to do the classic Christian compartmentalization move? Because I know you're very, you're very politically conscious.
Sure.
We're going to a protest tomorrow.
Yeah.
How did that interplay with your emotional state while you were there? Or did you keep it at a distance?
For the most part, I was able to keep it at a distance when it came to everyday stuff. When it came to stuff when I wasn't deployed, it was very easy to keep it at a distance. Because it's like, somebody else is going to be doing this job if I'm not doing it. And right now we're just training. We're doing all these things that potentially could be a positive thing. They could contribute to a positive force. And of course, I got lucky that all of my years in the military, a couple were served under Bush, but at the end I was serving under Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's somebody who I felt like at the time, I'm like, oh, this is somebody who's responsible because he's the one that decided to pull us out of Iraq. And that's something that I supported. And then also he's the one that authorized the mission that got Osama bin Laden. And
he shut down Abu Ghraib like you said he would. No. He stopped droning everyone when he got out of office.
Right. But yeah, of course, at the time it was going from President Bush, who I disagreed with and I did not vote for. I'm comfortable saying that, whatever.
I'm a big Obama fan. I'm just big on not denying bad shit about people you idolize. Yeah.
Right. No. And I completely agree because it's only afterwards that living under the Obama administration, and it was only after I got out, I think, that we started finding out about the drone program being as big as it was. And like, oh, it's not as like accurate and safe as as they purport it to be. It's killing children and families too.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately for me, that didn't happen while I was in the military.
Didn't overlap.
Right. And so, a lot of it was, I was able to just kind of be detached from it when I was doing everyday stuff. Occasionally during my second deployment, and like I said, in the quiet moments, it was hard to reconcile and deal with, especially because, and I think I'm good to talk about this stuff, but when I was there and during my second deployment, we were training the Iraqi army to take over for us because we were already...
Special forces dudes are rappelling down the window. I don't think you're cleared to discuss this. No, sorry.
We were already training them to take over for us.
Sure.
And so we were working with the Iraqi army. And of course, a lot of people in leadership positions in the Iraqi army had been people that had been, because we completely got rid of the Ba'ath Party, which was a bad idea logistically. That meant that the military leaders that we ended up working with a lot of times had operated in insurgencies. They had killed Americans. They had done stuff like that. And so I ended up doing my last 6 months of my second deployment, working intelligence with the Iraqi army intelligence people, and a couple of the people there, a couple of their commanders and stuff like that. We knew like some of the bad stuff that they had done. We knew.
Awkward.
Yeah.
No, but like it sounds like Sicario shit. We're like, there is no good, there is no bad. Like, yeah, it's just a change. He changed his badge and his nameplate. Now he's on our side.
Yeah, basically. And that is what was happening.
Yeah.
And so it was harder to reconcile during my second deployment. During that time, it's like, what are we even doing? Like, the ideas of good and bad and stuff like that.
You hang around long enough that you're like, but he was on the big board of people we hated 4 years ago. Exactly. Did everyone forget that? We patrolled looking for him several times. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, and so that's, like I said, I'm able to do the job of collecting intelligence and then writing reports and disseminating intelligence while I'm working my whatever hour shift. But then when I'm by myself in my room, it's like it's hard to get away from what is going on. What am I doing? And that's not to mention that at that time, I was having a really rough time in my marriage. So it was just, my second deployment was not harder physically or even necessarily mentally with the adjusting, because your first deployment it's a brand new thing.
Yeah.
But it was definitely harder in a mental sense, that I was keenly aware of what was going on, but then also struggling with stuff back home. And wanting
your life to come together back home. So
right.
Having your focus on the future after the Army.
Right. And so that one was difficult for its own reasons. But yeah, for sure, the shine wore off completely then. And it was because right before the deployment, I had extended my enlistment so that I could be with my unit through my second deployment and have a couple months afterwards to out process. But like, once I'm in the middle of it, and of course, once you sign that contract, that's what it is. But yeah, there was a part of me that regretted it when I was there, and it was hard. It was something that was definitely, I guess, maturing as a person into that it was hard. It was
Do you
tough to live
see
with.
any positive aspects? Did it mature you in a way you appreciate, or do you think you could have done that outside the Army?
I do think I could have matured. I would have matured personally outside of the Army. But there are certainly parts of me that I have to attribute to the fact that I was in the Army. I'm pretty unshakable now. Like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
I don't freak out over small things. I'm always kind of able to look at the big picture and not worry about. And then there's a part of me that would not be doing this right now. And by this, I mean like trying to get Small Beans going and like working on being an actor and stuff like that. There would be a part of me that was not bold enough if I hadn't gone through the Army, because what can I go back to that
like
that
what's the danger?
Worse?
I'll be embarrassed. I won't get the audition. Like,
or like, even
you don't
if
care.
I don't get an audition, even if I'm unemployable as an actor,
will they take a shot at me with a gun?
Like,
no.
there's nothing. There's no bottom floor for me when it comes to that. So I'm not going to be thrown out into another country in the desert again and told to fight people.
I'm trying to think if Small Beans could somehow get us mixed up in gunplay with, like, it would be organized crime or something, not a war scenario. You know, we'd take out too many loans.
Well, hopefully we don't do that.
That's not your call to make.
I'm just saying I hope that.
Oh, okay, good. How has it been since? Because you say you're able to keep everything fairly stable. Do you still ever have your brain cycle out of control over this stuff or these memories, or is it that didn't happen to you? Because the classic image is the haunted soldier.
I'm not haunted by this stuff because there's a part of me that was able to reconcile the fact that reliving that stuff in my brain isn't going to change anything now. And I had to kind of come to that realization. And so now it's do whatever I can to make a positive impact and to make the world better and to try to make sure that we don't have conflicts like that anymore. Like that's a thing that drives me. And so, yeah, of course there's the moments. There's moments like hearing the Quran
like
recitation.
Anxiety can still come over you. Sure.
That stuff still comes back, but it's not, I'm lucky I don't have PTSD.
Like, it's weird. If people shoot at me, I'll still get nervous. Like I will. I'll get a little nervous.
No, I consider myself very lucky that I don't have PTSD. At least not. I mean, it's never been diagnosed. It's never been anything like that, and I don't dwell.
It's
on
not
those
debilitating.
memories.
At least it's not impacting.
It's something
your
that
life.
does come back. That, of course, it's a part of my life.
But
it's a part of me.
Extreme situations,
right.
When you remember them, feeling emotions is normal to a point. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not flashbacks. It's not waking up in the middle of the night sweating and it's none of that.
How's the Army treated you as a vet? I just have to ask because like our understanding, the public, is that it's like shit. That they treated you like shit.
I'm in a weird middle ground when it comes to the military because I did serve 2 combat tours. They are required, the VA was required to give me, I think, 5 years of actual complete medical coverage. And then after that, it's X amount for me to use their medical coverage. So I'm not technically insured now, but I can always go back to them and it's at whatever rate that I'm able to afford according to the money that I'm making. But yeah, the VA is very specifically for people who were injured in the military and for those injuries. Unless you get...
How's your ankle these days?
It's like, it hurts every once in a while, but it's like I can walk and I'm okay with it. I think the constant pain that I felt for a while I feel like is probably just edited out now in my brain because it's like, okay, and this is just something that is forever now. It's not something that actively.
Oh, you might have just habituated to it. Yeah.
And because it's not something I notice anymore unless it really hurts.
Right.
But
my question is, if you went in, would they cover it?
If I went in, they would, and the pain was getting worse and they did MRIs and they saw that it was worse, then they would do something about it. But until it gets to that point, no, they're not going to do it.
But they don't cover. So, like, if you get in a car accident tomorrow, they don't cover that?
No.
It had to be... Okay, I didn't know that. The injury has to be sustained during your tour.
Yeah, their wording is service-connected.
Okay.
So, it's not necessarily...
So, PTSD counts even if it manifests later,
exactly.
but it has to have a connection. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so, that's kind of how they handle anyone, unless you have a high enough disability percentage, then you get VA medical care for the rest of your life. So like I said, I'm in a weird middle ground where I'm not technically injured enough or debilitated enough to get their coverage for the rest of my life.
Okay.
But I was also did 2 tours of duty, 2 combat tours. So they were required
like
to,
or you're high on the some lists.
So yeah, exactly. I still get treated there if I can afford it.
Okay. So we'll still have to do an episode with some haunted PTSD-ridden soldier who can't get medical coverage, because that's a very pressing issue in America. Yeah. But I certainly don't want to omit, and I feel like we could probably do a part 2 of just stories.
Sure.
But did you have any other major threads you want to share?
I don't think so. And well, I guess. My thoughts
today.
on
we have time forever, but yeah.
No, my thoughts on the military just in general, I think my service was a good thing because like I said, it gave me confidence that I didn't necessarily have. It gave me,
there's a quote. Would you recommend a young person going to the military now?
I'd say that it is an individual choice for everyone to make, because if you feel morally completely objected to it, I think, don't serve in the military. But I also think personally that everybody should do something where they serve other people. Whether that's, you could work as a janitor, you could work as a garbage man, or a firefighter, or a police officer, military, whatever. Any kind of civil service you want to do, I think people should do it.
Yeah.
Because I think there is an element, not enough people understand that you can find yourself in giving what you have to other people. In a big sense, not like in a codependent like relationship sense.
No. The act of giving is one of the most selfish things. Like, you benefit so much from it internally. Exactly. I haven't ever done it, but
you can
generosity. I hear it's nice, fills you with some kind of feeling that's warm.
But no, you figure out what you're good at. You can find yourself and what you're capable of. And I do think the challenge for me of the military was another thing that was certainly like there, because I think there's a lot of stuff goes on with the men of our generation and a little bit younger that we've lost a lot of our rituals and stuff like that the world lets you know when you're a man, kind of a thing.
Oh, that's a whole nother episode.
No,
we'll do a No, I'm not trying to show you up, but I'm saying that made me realize we could do a masculinity episode. That'd be interesting. Yeah.
And I think that the military specifically for me was good in that sense. That
is there masculinity culture in the military? Okay.
Like, because I never got into the hyper macho stuff of like always wanting to, the toxic aspect.
Sure.
Because I don't want to decry one thing as being toxic or whatever other aspects that are not. That's not for this episode. But I do think that the service and the difficulty of actually making it through basic training and my time in the military were both very good for me. Mm-hmm. Because they let me know that I can do something that's hard. Basically, it was the way that I think of it as you do something hard until that thing that is hard is easy. Then you find something else that's difficult to do and make that easy. And that's kind of me as I am now. And I learned that by going through that really difficult thing and by serving and giving myself completely to something bigger, to a
larger community.
Yeah. So I'd say for guys that
don't be a goddamn hedge fund manager. Like, no, I actually think that's one of the greatest wastes of time on earth you can spend that's not actively doing evil is to shuffle numbers around so that other people's numbers get shuffled around. Like, find a way that you actually serve a community in a concrete way. Money doesn't count. To me.
No, and I agree.
Unless they're impoverished. Sure. That's different.
But then that is service. Because if you're somebody who's an accountant who helps people get their books together and stuff like that, who don't understand, who don't have financial literacy, that's serving.
Yeah. That's not really what I'm.
Exactly. That's
attacking.
not what you're talking about.
No.
But yeah. And so I think there's something that was good for me in becoming a man and the man that I am, that went along with the military, because I guess there's something, we're all strong physically. Maybe we're not all strong physically, but we all have strengths, and my strength was physical. And so learning to use it in a way that helps other people was good for me. And I think everybody should learn to use the strengths that they have to help whoever doesn't have that strength.
In today's technologically advanced military, do you have to be that physically strong to make an impact? Because my understanding was if I joined, I would get an exoskeleton.
I was in the infantry.
There's still positions for people, I think, who are not yoked.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can be in the Air Force and like...
Oh, burn Griffin.
I just mean that you can be in the Air Force and do number things more, because there's more positions there for that kind of stuff. He was on not piloting, he was on a major ship, and his job was to sit at a desk
in the air and do stuff in the air.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's
So
much
it
different.
wasn't very physically taxing.
Right. And so my job was putting on 100 pounds of gear and walking for 7.5 miles and possibly getting shot at and then taking cover and doing all sorts of stuff.
Man.
So
in the first 4 minutes of Spec Ops: The Line, you bring down 12 helicopters. and it's like the most realistic war experience ever committed to video games.
what army are we fighting that has 12 helicopters that they can just throw at us?
Yeah. Someone should crunch the numbers on any war game, video game, and be like, so the country, what the Middle Eastern country representing would have to have a gross national product of this much to have fielded that military in that game. Get on it, people. I know, I don't know if I'm going to put it at the beginning or the end, but you did bring a piece to read.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I definitely want to get that. Did you want to provide any context? If not, I will write context around it.
There's no real context for this other than this was something that I wrote for basically anytime that we might be going to war. This is just kind of an emotional and factual accounting of some of the stuff that happened when I was deployed, because it was just kind of a way for me to I don't know, to share it in a way that I feel like I'm okay at writing.
You're too modest.
No, but yeah, it was a way for me to put my thoughts down and like maybe try to communicate it to other people in a way that wasn't just me like looking at them and saying, hey, this is what happens in war. Mm-hmm. You might have to make the decision whether or not to kill someone.
Right.
You will have people that die around you that you lose, and you will feel guilt over surviving. And so, yeah, it's kind of my, I guess, more artistic way of expressing just those ideas.
Written during your service or after?
This was written after. This was when I was working at Cracked.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this was after I'd had some time to kind of adjust and I guess find normalcy. It started out with a sense of patriotism, duty, and pride. Serving your country, especially at a time of conflict, is no small thing. Even when that service included a lot of cleaning, weapons, barracks, vehicles, etc. It was being done with the goal of getting out there and making the world safer. Safer because as an infantryman, it's your job to, quote, close with the enemy by means of fire and maneuver in order to destroy or capture him, or to repel his assault with fire, close combat, and counterattack. End quote. Taking out bad guys, that's it. That's what you're there for. You and your brothers against terror. You've gone beyond just fighting against another army and are trying to take terror out of the world. Then you hear about an old squad leader you knew being killed by an IED. You weren't still in the same unit. He was with the 4th Infantry Division, or maybe it was 1st Cav. But he was a good guy. Not your squad leader, but someone that your buddies really liked. And he's just gone. But there isn't a lot of time to think about it because you're back out on security patrols. You're making the AO safer so that the locals can rebuild and have a stake in the community. Because that's the way you beat an insurgency. That was the point of the surge. And then you see puffs of dirt in front of you and you hear a crack. You're taking cover and your buddies are too. You look around to see where everyone's at. We're all here. You look through your weapon's optics and see them. As your finger reflexively finds the trigger. God damn it. They're wearing a reflective belt. Those were supposed to be the guys we were paying to help pull security. So what do you do? What do you do? he used to break dance. Your first day at the unit, they thought you were going to 3rd platoon, and he was just another lower enlisted guy, but he was nice to you. Even though you ended up in 2nd platoon, you guys were always cool, and at the company party right before deployment, he got into a dance battle with one of your platoon's team leaders, and he was really good at breakdancing. You don't know how bad he's injured or if he's got a good chance to make it, but you've seen the Humvee he was driving. His squad leader, another guy that was always cool, had a compound fracture from the incident and still wanted to finish the patrol. You can't do anything but wait for updates. Please be okay. It's been a couple months without anything crazy happening. Another smooth patrol cycle, it's hot as fuck now, and getting some AC and decent food at the FOB sounds great. Then your squad leader tells you something happened. You're not sure what exactly, but 2 guys from A Company are dead. The squad leader had been with the unit for years, and your squad leader had deployed with him in the initial invasion. Everybody seemed to like him, and now he was gone. Your squad leader wasn't a really emotional guy, but there was something different when he told you guys. Something quieter, more still. It's like she was sleeping. Like that deep sleep kids go into when they're completely out, just limp. But the father's body language is panicked, and he's running with her limp body towards the medics. And there's something wrong with her hair. Her hair's dark, so it's hard to tell, but it looks wet. Doc, which is what we call the medics, looks worried. You've seen him look focused before during drills, but there's something wrong in his eyes. The medevac gets there and takes off as quickly as they can, but you know what you just saw. That's what war was for me. No logical progression, no cinematic moments, no dramatic pauses. War is hearing about an old squad leader you knew just being gone. It's making a decision that could end someone's life. It's not knowing what happened to your friend and just being in limbo with that. It's feeling and seeing something wrong with your mentor and not knowing what or if you should say anything. And it's knowing exactly what you just saw.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!